Thank you for joining us.
Yes, nice to meet you, everyone. Good evening. It's 8:20 in the morning here in Tokyo. It's a pleasure to meet everyone. Let me try to share my screen. So first of all, good evening, everyone. My name is Mayumi. It's pronounced me. That's an easy way to kind of remember it. Um, I grew up in Seattle for about 12 years when I was very little. So I have very fond memories of the US. Currently, I'm based in central Tokyo working as a licensed real estate agent with Keller Williams Tokyo. My expertise is in the top neighborhoods of Minato Ward, which is the most highly sought after market here in Tokyo. So I'm very super excited to share an overview on the real estate market here. May I ask if any of you have ever visited Japan before from Ohio?
I have, yes.
Yes, you have. Okay. Oh, great. So let's start with a quick overview of Japan, since many of the others have not visited there. And I apologize if some of the content is very similar to Hiroko-san's. So again, I'm starting with an illustration of Japan and the US, just to compare the size. So you can see that Japan is comprised of four main islands, and altogether the size is approximately equivalent to that of California. But as Hiroko also mentioned, due to its vertical geography and being surrounded by the ocean, we are known for having four distinct seasons, and the climate can change dramatically depending on your location and the season. So now that we saw the size of Japan compared to the US, let's take a look at a quick overview of the country. It is the third largest economy in the world, known for mainly automobiles and electronics, and lately, with the younger generation, anime, Pokemon. Uh, but it's also known for its rich culture, such as the old tea ceremonies, kabukis, and often the well-visited 1,000-year-old shrines and temples all over Japan. The numbers of tourists have been growing. It's already surpassed pre-COVID figures. Last year's annual increase was 20% over 2023, and this year's increase is being expected at 28% more than last year. So many visitors are now repeated visitors, and that used to be only from mostly Asia. So a lot of Chinese, Hong Kong, Singaporean, Malaysian, Thai, and some Australia used to be repeat visitors to Japan. But these past few years, we're seeing many more visitors repeatedly coming to Japan from Europe and the US. And that could be because, as Hiroko-san mentioned, it is a very safe country. We do not have guns in Japan, and everything is efficient and very reliable and clean. On every mornings on the streets, you can see store owners starting their day by cleaning the streets in front of their shops. So that's how Japan has always been kept very clean. And as mentioned before, we do have a declining population and a very aging population now. 30% of the population is older than 65. Most of the elderly live in rural areas of Japan, and the younger population tend to move to Tokyo for jobs. So now this is a map of Japan alone, and you can see where Tokyo lies. It is in the center of Japan along the Pacific Ocean, and you can see that the country is comprised of 47 prefectures. So prefectures are similar to the states in the US, but the law is the same throughout all the 47 prefectures. And now we're zooming into a map of Tokyo and the surrounding Kanto area with 6 other prefectures. On the table, you can see that Tokyo is approximately 75 kilometers wide, and 25 kilometers is approximately 15 miles. So you can see that Tokyo stretched out from left to right or east to west is approximately 45 miles. And towards the right of Tokyo is the Narita Airport, and on the tip of Tokyo near the Tokyo Bay is where the Haneda Airport is. And this airport is much closer to the city, just 20 or 30 minutes away by taxi. When we usually refer to the term Tokyo, normally we speak of the 23 wards, which is highlighted in light green towards the right. Now, each wards have pockets of neighborhoods and appeal to different buyers and different residents. So I think Jennifer, having visited Tokyo, may have realized that each area has a different vibe, different color, different mixture of people who frequently visit those areas.
For sure.
And in this map, you can see that number 11 is the largest ward, and it's called Setagaya, and it's known for having generously sized detached homes in a residential setting. And it's noted that Setagaya has a population of over 939,000 people, which is actually almost the same population as Columbus City, Ohio, I believe. And now this map shows the same map as a previous page, but highlighting a Yamanote train line in green. And this is a famous train line which circles around central Tokyo. The loop is approximately 21 miles, and one circle takes about 60 minutes by the Yamanote train line. So generally speaking, property prices within the loop are higher than those outside of the loop. And the most expensive ward is Minato-ku, which is number 5 on this map. This is where neighborhoods such as Roppongi, Akasaka, and Toranomon are located. And why it's most sought after and expensive is because there has been some major developers that have been redeveloping some of these areas over the past 40 years to create a beautifully landscaped urban oasis in the center of the city. So this is just to give you an example of what Tokyo looks like. This is the view from the 52nd floor observation deck in Roppongi Hills, facing towards the Tokyo Bay. So Haneda Airport cannot be seen here, but it's towards the right. This area is part of the Minato Ward, where many global firms have their headquarters and embassies are located, including the United States. There are many high-rise office buildings, as you can see, and high-rise condos mixed among these offices. And then this photo was also taken from the same observation deck facing west towards Mount Fuji. You can see a glimpse of it towards the left, and towards the right is the highway between Roppongi and Shibuya. The distance is probably just not even 2 miles from Roppongi to Shibuya, but you can see that it's just endlessly densely populated all the way out for many, many more miles. And this is only a small area of central Tokyo. And here is a sample picture of a subway map of Tokyo. Most Tokyo residents do not necessarily own cars. It's not necessary just because the subway system and the train system is so vast. Property prices are generally higher the closer they are to a station, A good benchmark when looking for a property is to be within a 10-minute walking distance from a station. And most properties are listed showing minutes to stations being a major key factor. So for example, 1 minute is calculated at 80 meters or roughly 87 yards per minute, which means a 10-minute walk to a station will be half a mile. So most people in Tokyo will easily walk a minimum of a mile every day just to commute to the station and then start their journey to their offices. And now that we saw how large Tokyo is, we can understand that it is the largest metropolitan area globally, with a population of 37 million in the metro area and 14 million living in the city. The vast public transit system means there's a wide selection of neighborhoods to choose from. Please note that the previous map only showed subways. We also have extensive trains running out of hub stations, such as Shinjuku and Shibuya. So this means that most office workers commute between 45 minutes and sometimes up to 90 minutes each day, door to door, just to go to their offices. Headquarters for global firms, for finance and tech are all in Tokyo. Most manufacturing firms are not necessarily headquartered in Tokyo. They're scattered all around Japan. But Tokyo is by far the largest city in Japan, and the GDP is again comparable to California's. Now let's look at Tokyo's residential market. There's very limited land for new construction left. Domestic buyers and foreign buyers have been increasingly buying in central Tokyo. In Tokyo, condos are generally preferred over detached homes, and that's due to its proximity to the business districts. So this means less commuting time, and those with means will prefer to live closer to the amenities and conveniences of living in the center of the city. Condo prices have been up 70% since 2014, over the past 10 years in the 23 wards. Now, if we narrow this down to the most expensive Minato ward, it is actually up over 300% and 30% alone during 2024. So the market is very hot, and due to the high cost of owning in central Tokyo, the home ownership in Metro Tokyo is 65%, but central Tokyo is much lower at 41%. And I just made a fun chart just to make a comparison between central Tokyo, including all 23 wards, and Columbus City. So this chart, you can see on the left, the average home price in Tokyo. So Tokyo is using the average new condo price for 2024. It was approximately $760,000 for the size of 62 square meters, which is 670 square feet. So the newer buildings are becoming even smaller now because of the scarcity of land. So what are the investment drivers? In Japan, especially in large cities such as Tokyo, real estate has been viewed as a safe haven because of the ultra low interest rates, sometimes almost zero, and the strong legal protections make property a stable, low-risk asset. The limited land supply and steady demand in Tokyo further preserves capital, even as other investments yield little. And recently, mostly due to the weak yen, it is a bargain for foreign investors compared to other global cities such as New York, London, Hong Kong, and Singapore. So compared to when the yen was 100 yen per dollar just a few years ago, it is now currently at 147 yen per dollar. So that makes Tokyo prices at a discount of nearly 30% for US dollar and mostly euro holders. So can foreigners own property in Japan? Yes, absolutely. There are actually no restrictions whether you are a resident or not, or whatever nationality, and the conditions are the same as for Japanese citizens. However, if you do not live in Japan, assume you need to purchase by cash. Japanese banks require residency or a stable income, and sometimes a credit history of up to 3 years will be viewed for mortgage. The buying process may seem similar to the US, but the biggest difference is the lack of a platform equivalent to something like Zillow. So you will need to rely on a bilingual agent to assist you in searching for property, as the Japanese platforms can be very confusing, lacking detailed information, and the same property could be listed by multiple random agents and not necessarily the actual seller's agent. So you'll be very confused as to who to contact or whether it's the same property or different properties, because one same property could be listed but may appear different on some platforms in Japan. Also note that an escrow is not yet widely used, and it is very common to pay the deposit and the outstanding balance directly to the seller. So this safety ensured with the help of a judicial scrivener, and a judicial scrivener is similar to a notary or lawyer in other countries. But you should also make sure that your agent will assist you in arranging a bilingual scrivener as well. The buyer does not necessarily need to be present in Japan upon closing or contract day. It can be handled by giving power of attorney to a scrivener or lawyer, or even a friend in Japan. Now, what should you expect as a total transaction cost when purchasing property in Japan? As a general rule of thumb, allow 6 to 8% of the property price to pay for the noted fees. So the fees are the same as the Japanese. The most notable one and clear one is the 3% brokerage fees. So in Japan, the fee structure has always been separate. The seller pays his agent 3%, and the buyer pays his agent 3%. It's very clear and simple. To be accurate, it is 3% plus 60,000 yen and the consumption tax, which is Japan's version of GST and currently at 10%. As a non-yen based foreign buyer, one risk to keep in mind is a currency exchange rate. Fluctuations obviously cannot be predicted, and rates could vary depending on the timing of exchanging. Now, another point to note is not being able to open a bank account. So purchasing a property alone in Japan will not grant you the right to open a bank account. So most foreign clients who purchase in Japan will purchase a condo, which means that there are monthly dues, monthly HOA fees due. And most of these payments for monthly HO fees are usually required to be automatically withdrawn each month from a Japanese bank account. And since most foreign buyers do not have that Japanese bank account, they will need assistance from their agent's brokerage firm to set up a property management account for this purpose. Now let's go over some key differences from the US market. Japanese have historically preferred new construction over existing homes. And that could be because the concept of upgrading or renovating the home was non-existent until recent years, which added to the attractiveness of buying a new construction over a tired-looking existing home. And the reason for that is also because most Japanese move much less than those in the US, meaning once they purchase a home, the intent is to live there forever. Now in Tokyo, condos are favored over detached homes. And the reason being condos are generally built closer again to central business districts, which means less commuting time. And if you have been to Tokyo and experienced the rush hour commute, you will realize how it's very notorious. Sometimes you have to be squished in to make a certain train. So most couples who are now working together without children would prefer to live closer to the city instead of living in a larger detached home outside where you need to endure that long, challenging commute to work every day. So it's very different from the US, where each person has their own space and their own car to commute comfortably. Another big difference to note is the way real estate agents have been working in Japan. So in Japan, historically, the brokerage firms have been subsidiaries of the major developers. So there are maybe 4 or 5 top developers, and they have their large subsidiary brokerage firms nationwide. So when most Japanese decide to look for a property, they will look on a platform called, well, lately, they will look on a platform called Sumo. And they would just call whoever listed it on Sumo. And like I mentioned earlier, that may not be the listing agent. But whatever agent company who picks up the phone is going to be your agent. It's not going to be someone necessarily experienced or versed in the neighborhood that your target property is located in. And remember that in Japan, most brokerage firms are salaried men. So they are hired usually straight out of college and they work until retirement. And so they also commute maybe 30 minutes or an hour away to those offices. So they may be professionally acquainted with some of the neighbors and the listings that their company handles, but they will not be local agents like those in the US. Now, on a few pages before, we went over the fact that a buyer will not be able to obtain information on properties using tools like Zillow in Japan. For us agents, we have access to a system called RAINS. Now, RAINS stands for Real Estate Information Network System. The Japanese like to use English alphabets to summarize something new to make it sound more Western. So this is a nationwide database for listings. However, the catch is that the listing agent is not always required to list on RAINS. And in fact, many sellers prefer not to have their properties listed on RAINS or not even advertised for sale. And this is due to the Japanese culture, where many prefer to keep their business private. And also, I mentioned that many Japanese, when they purchase homes, their original intent is to live there forever. So to move from there until recently had been more of a stigma, as if is there a negative reason you need to let go of your house and move. So many actually do prefer not to have their homes advertised or known as being sold to their neighbors. So that means that RAINS does not show all of the listings. There are a lot of private pocket listings. And so in order to obtain information for certain neighborhoods, you need to be an agent needs to be very well connected with the other agents who work in that same neighborhood. And due to the fact that REINS does not require reporting of sold properties, it is estimated that only about 1 in 7 to 1 in 8 transactions are officially reported as sold. So you can try to request for a CMA report from an agent in Japan, but it will not be accurate due to the lack of data. Now, surprisingly, not all agents are licensed in Japan. By regulation, only 1 out of 5 at each brokerage firm is required to be licensed. And why is this? You may be surprised to hear that the exam for the license is only carried out once each year, and the passing rate is between 15 to 18%. So they make it very challenging and difficult to pass. There are many very successful agents, yet are not licensed. And if you are not licensed, you're not able to carry out the entire transaction. So somebody else will need to create the disclosure document, and unless you're licensed, you will not be able to explain the disclosure documents to your client. Another question often asked is, can foreigners purchase properties as second homes and rent out between their visits for short-term rentals? In Tokyo, at least, most condominiums, their HOAs, have banned short-term rentals, so you will not be able to most likely find a nice condo which also allows short-term rentals. You would need to purchase a detached home or perhaps an older apartment without regulations against short-term rentals. And also to note is that owning real estate does not grant you a residency in Japan or a visa. Lastly, currently foreigners can buy freely and own land and buildings in Japan. One thing to make sure is to look for homes built after 1981. These are built after the current seismic standards, so they're considered to be much safer. Obviously, there are some very high quality low rises that were built before 1981 and are just as safe, but it is a good benchmark to keep an eye out for when looking for properties. Partnering with a bilingual licensed agent is essential, as only licensed agents can handle transactions and will provide a seamless process with you and give you the legal disclosure document. So you would think that the legal disclosure document is also required in Japan, but it's actually not required. So you must be very careful that you do work with a licensed agent. Please remember that rural homes and akiyas may appear cheaper, but often depreciate and can be hard to resell due to depopulation. I'm not sure if akiya is a common term now in the States. It stands for abandoned homes in rural suburban Japan. There are many abandoned homes now because of the aging population and because of the low birth rate. Many children who inherit their parents' homes do not need it to live there anymore because they already live in bigger cities. But they don't sell it because their family has been living there for many years, sometimes many generations. And Japanese tend to have accumulated many belongings, especially those who lost everything during the war. So the younger generation who's inherited those properties just cannot take time off from their work and commit to clearing out the house and putting it up on the market. So there are a lot of abandoned homes that could be inhabited, but the children who has inherited are just not ready yet to let go. And the property taxes in those areas are quite minimal. So they would rather continue paying the property taxes instead of clearing it out and selling it. Let's see. Other popular cities other than Tokyo include Osaka and Kyoto, and the resort areas in Okinawa and Hokkaido. So Hokkaido is home to Niseko and Furano. And now I would like to pass over the screen to Masaki-san, who will introduce you to the ski resorts in Hokkaido. I hope many of you are interested in visiting Tokyo, and I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, fascinating information.